Welcome back. It's another edition of NJCAA All Access. Today is Thursday, October 12th, and I'm Zach McKinstry.
I'm Alexa Wesselman, and we've got teams preparing for winter sports, which means fall sports championships are getting closer.
Those playoff races are heating up with the upcoming matchups this weekend, but especially when you look at the scoreboard from last weekend. Thursdays in the fall are for Mississippi junior college football, and the MACCC's first 5 weeks have left most fans bewildered. The current standings are nearly unrecognizable to the preseason polls, and one of the teams responsible for the shock is number 12 Northeast Mississippi, who stayed undefeated with a 37-20 win over Holmes. The Tigers put up 37 points despite punting 6 times and passing for less than 200 yards. Backup QB Cameron Dill had to come in the second quarter and went 8 for 10 with 143 yards and 3 total touchdowns. It was tight into the third quarter when on the first play following a Holmes field goal, which made it 17-13, Chris McMillan took it 65 yards to the house, and the Tigers wouldn't look back. Northeast defense picked up 4 sacks, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery, and held the Bulldogs to 104 yards on the ground in the win to move to 5-0. Mississippi Gulf Coast stayed perfect with a 52-21 win over Pearl River, and just when you think EMCC is out of the conference race, they dominate the number 10 Northwest Rangers on the road 35-17. The most hyped up game this weekend was the top 5 clash between the number 2 Iowa Western and the number 5 Snow Badgers. This matchup definitely lived up to the expectations as the Reavers came from behind to pull off the win on the road 20-13. Snow's defense was buzzing to open the game, forcing 2 punts and 2 turnovers on the first 4 Iowa Western drives, and Donovan Smith helped get the Badgers out to a halftime lead. But Snow couldn't crack the Iowa Western defense in the second half, getting shut out thanks to a dominant performance by the Reavers pass rush. 11 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, and a blocked extra point limited Snow to just 13 points, and a penalty by Snow's head coach gave great field position to Iowa Western, who would score the last points on a go-ahead touchdown to Latrell Bonner in the third quarter for the road victory. Hutch showed no signs of regressing as the Blue Dragons blew out the Conquistadors of Dodge City by 5 scores. Number 3 Iowa Central survived a close one at home against Coffeyville, and Garden City got back in the win column with a win over Independence. After a near disaster last week against NEO, number 6 Tyler couldn't get right in a matchup with New Mexico Military as they dropped to 3-2. This L means that everyone in the Southwest Junior College Football Conference has at least one conference loss, and that anything could happen with 4 weeks to go. Joel Jones was dazzling for the Broncos with 173 rushing yards and 3 trips to the end zone. New Mexico Military totaled 220 yards on the ground as a whole, and the Broncos defense locked down Tyler's star quarterback Jaden Pete, sacking and picking him off twice, hitting him 9 times, and holding him to a little over 200 yards total in the 31-17 dub. Number 8 Trinity Valley took down Blinn in a conference matchup, and number 15 Lackawanna ran away with Monroe 41-18. Upsets galore in Division III last weekend. Number 3 Minnesota State fell to the Norse of Mesabi Range, and number 4 Rochester hung on after a vicious comeback from number 2 North Dakota SCS, who opted to go for 2 and the win with 6 seconds left instead of kicking the extra point to tie it and force overtime, and they were stopped short. And Nassau fell to Army Military Academy Prep to round out the D3 slate. And even more upsets across the rest of fall sports. Division I men's soccer, number 1 Monroe lost to East Florida State, and Division II women's soccer, number 1 lost to number 3 Northwest Mississippi. And in volleyball, number 13 College of Southern Idaho swept number 11 Utah State Eastern, and number 7 DuPage of Division III lost to an unranked Harper squad. So a busy weekend last weekend. The new week of football and the rest of sports starts today. Let's go to Alexa to give us the insight on what's coming up.
Okay, Zach just gave us some of the biggest games from the previous week, but we've got some big games coming up in the next week. We're going to start with D1 football. Number 12 Butler facing number 3 Iowa Central. Butler is coming off a bye week, which might be to their advantage, allows them to get some rest in order to face a very good Iowa Central team. The Tritons have one loss to Hutchinson, which is something they have in common with Butler. Iowa Central did have a close call last week with Coffeyville, but managed to pull off the win. So that's a game that could be really good depending on both teams showing up. Moving into men's soccer, Division II, number 5 Barton faces number 13 Otero. Barton is playing solid soccer. So far, they've only got 3 ties and 10 wins. They did receive their first loss this week, but Otero can boast almost the same record. They've got 11 wins and 3 ties. So neither of these teams are wanting to add a loss to their record. In women's soccer, Division III, number 2 Dallas College Brookhaven faces number 3 Dallas College Richland. This is the battle of the Dallas schools. They are less than 30 minutes from each other. Dallas Brookhaven hasn't had a loss since September 3rd. They're not looking to change that. Dallas Richland only has 2 ties so far this season. They also don't want that to change. In D1 volleyball, number 6 New Mexico Military looking at number 8 New Mexico. We just had the battle of the Dallas schools. We've now got the battle of the New Mexico schools. These teams have played each other this season already. Nimi walked away with the win on that one, so New Mexico is looking for a different outcome this time around. And lastly, we have our NJCAA ESPN Plus Game of the Week. Number 14 ranked New Mexico Military Institute hosts the Cisco Wranglers. That game is in Roswell, New Mexico, Saturday, 3 Mountain Time, 5 p.m. Eastern. So tune into ESPN Plus for that game. And those are the big matchups that we'll be watching over the next week. We've got Coach Aaron Arnold standing by with Zach to do another round of his insights for Division I football.
Welcome back, Aaron. That's at Coach A. Arnold on Twitter if you want to give him a follow. We've got plenty of football to talk about from last weekend, but we start in the Lone Star State. It was Tyler, the last Texas Conference undefeated team until New Mexico Military ran all over them last week, upsetting the number 6 Apaches. With the Southwest Conference doesn't have an undefeated team left in conference play, does the winner of that conference still have a clear path to the playoff, or will it go its second straight year without a representative in that Final Four?
Well, I think the answer is that it kind of depends. The way I'm looking at the playoff picture right now, I think there's going to be enough undefeated and or 1-loss teams that I don't see a 2-loss team with a path to the playoffs right now. Obviously, things can change, but halfway through the season, you need to be undefeated or a 1-loss team. So in the Texas League right now, that leaves 2. You've got Kilgore and you've got Trinity Valley. Kilgore's the number 5 ranked team in the country. They're 4-1 right now. They've got remaining games versus Trinity Valley, versus Tyler and Abilene. Trinity Valley, number 6, also 4-1. They've got games versus Navarro, at Kilgore, and at New Mexico Military. So those 2 teams are interchangeable. I think if you see one of those 2 teams able to run the table for the remaining portion of the season and end up with 1 loss as the Texas League champion, they should get in. Obviously, at this point, the one of, if not the biggest games of the year, certainly the biggest game of the year in Texas, is going to be October 21st when those 2 teams collide. And I think the winner of that game does have a path to make the playoffs.
Kilgore and Trinity Valley moving to number 5 and number 6 in the latest rankings. And last week on the show, we talked about the remaining undefeated teams, including Northeast Mississippi Community College, which kind of came out of nowhere. They went out last week and beat a pretty decent Holmes team pretty badly. Is it time we start talking about the Tigers as a championship contender?
I think in the Mississippi League right now, Gulf Coast is still the favorite. They have a very clear path to the playoffs. They should win their next 3 games, and then they have a big test at number 7's Joan College before they head to the playoffs. Now, again, once you get to those Mississippi League playoffs, anything can happen. But I think if Gulf Coast is undefeated or even at 1 loss, they're probably going to be a playoff team. Northeast Mississippi is interesting. They've been the Cinderella of the conference so far this season. They appear to be legit. But we're going to find out. They've got tough games. They've got to go to East Mississippi and to Northwest Mississippi and then still get through the playoffs. They started the season ranked low enough that I think they probably need to finish the year undefeated. And if they do that, obviously they're in. If you're an undefeated conference championship in the Mississippi League, I don't think anything should keep you out of the playoff picture. So it's going to be fun to watch as the actual conference playoffs develop in Mississippi to see what shakes out. If I got a bet today, I'm going Gulf Coast wins the league. Gulf Coast makes the playoff.
We're going to find out a lot about Northeast Mississippi in the next coming weeks. Now, moving into rankings, Northeast made a big jump up to number 9, I believe. And elsewhere, the top 4 stay the same. Snow drops out of that number 5 spot. Do you think that Iowa Western has a case to be number 1 overall over Hutch after knocking off number 5 Snow on the road in Utah?
I don't. I can't see anything that Hutch has done that deserves them to lose the number 1 spot. To me, they're still number 1. They dominated again against a very sound Dodge City football team. That's a 46-10 win over a number 10 ranked team in the country. And the game was never really close. Hutch is still on that collision course with Iowa Western. Last game of the season, circle it on your calendar. It's going to be an awesome game. It's a solid win by Iowa Western. It's a tough road trip. I think for Iowa Western, the key, though, they need to remain undefeated heading into that game with Hutch. But again, in order to do that, they still have some tough games on their schedule, too. They've got to win at Butler. And then in 2 weeks, they've got their biggest game of the year versus number 3, Iowa Central. That's a rivalry game, and it's going to be fun to watch. I think that's probably the highest collectively that those two teams have ever been ranked going into that game. Now, Iowa Central, they're still very much in the hunt. They have to win out. They've got tough games versus Dodge, versus what has turned into an incredibly good team at Highland. And then, of course, they've got to beat Iowa Western like we just talked about. So I think if Iowa Central finishes with 2 losses, they're probably out of the playoff picture. So there's those top 3 teams all have really huge games coming up. We've already covered 4, 5, and 6 in the rankings. Number 7, Jones College. I still think if they're a 1-loss team in Mississippi and they win the championship, they have a shot. So outside of those 7 teams, the 1 through 7, the only team that still remains a playoff contender to me is the other team that we talked about earlier, undefeated Northeast Mississippi. Everybody else has 2 losses, or they just really haven't played a schedule that justifies a playoff spot to me. So I think you've got 1 through 7 plus Northeast Mississippi, and those are the 8 teams that are really still dancing.
A lot to still be figured out. You never want to overlook games, but that Hutch Iowa Western game at the end of the year is going to be massive if each team keeps on the path that they're on. So thank you, Coach Aaron Arnold, at Coach A. Arnold on Twitter again if you want to give him a follow. And that's all we got for you this week. So we will see you next week, and thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Another great conversation between Zach and Aaron Arnold. Thanks again for joining us, as always. We have a break, but on the other side, Zach talks with a student athlete who played soccer on a world stage. You don't want to miss it.
I have a little birthday message for you from someone, too.
I heard you really love basketball. You're a good shooter and a good dribbler. Happy birthday, MJ, and I hope you enjoy your day.
Thank you. You're welcome.
The future is threatened by enemies often unseen and unexpected. In the midst of an uncertain and evolving world, the need for Marines to defeat these shifting threats is critical, because the need to ensure stability for our nation has never been greater. When there are battles to win for America's future, there is one constant: Marines.
Welcome back to NJCAA All Access. It's not very often we have an NJCAA student athlete who plays a sport on a world level. Zach had the opportunity to talk to a student who did just that over the summer.
Welcome into Joo Game Changers, where we spotlight student athletes at the NJCAA level, and we have a special one here today. It is Hillary Hyen. She got to play for the national team of Panama during the FIFA Women's World Cup this year. An awesome opportunity, and she's been balling out at Jones to start the season so far. So Hillary, thanks for joining us today. Let's go ahead and jump into it. What was it like getting to play for a World Cup team and representing your country on a national stage?
When I was 15 years old, I joined the senior team. When I was 16 years old, I met a lot of good players like Carly Lloyd and Alex Morgan in the Women's Championship. We almost qualified to the World Cup in 2018, but we didn't make it because we lost on penalties against Jamaica. But we learned that discipline is something that you need, and I think that helped us to qualify this year to the World Cup.
Yeah, and obviously an awesome experience for Panama as a country as well. What kind of things did you learn from playing with some of those seasoned teammates from your country?
In the national team, we know each other since 2018, and I learned from them that having a good attitude can help in games. When Marta cuts my teammates to play, and that's what I learned from them.
That's phenomenal, and being able to learn that from them obviously can carry into other areas. Moving to your college, you leave South Alabama, you come to Jones. What has that experience been like for you? What went into the decision to leave South Alabama and come to the NJCAA level?
In South, I didn't have enough playing time. I think that it was the best decision for me at that time. And I can tell that my time in Jones is really good so far. And they're so nice here, the coaches are nice here. And the best part is that I went to the World Cup, and that's something that the coach Dolores helping, and I appreciate it.
So Hillary, you leave South Alabama, you come to Jones, new at Jones, but you have a great coaching staff behind you that you mesh with. They got the chance to play on the national level for Ireland. You have some players on the team that get to play at the national level. What does that mean to you to be able to have that opportunity?
I'm enjoying my time here. I know that Coach Dolores was part of her national team. I know that she can feel the same feelings that I have about my national team. And it's good to know people like my teammate that she's from her national team. It's like, that's what soccer gives you all the time, like meeting people around the world that have the same passion. And I know that they support me really well. And when I want to go to the national team, I will have the opportunity of them to support me. And I know that I can help them in the conference games.
Hillary, I know you haven't been there long, but what's been your favorite part of Jones so far?
My favorite part about Jones are my teammates. They are nice people. I can tell you that they try to explain me all the things on the field, and sometimes they try to speak in Spanish, and that is something that I like about them. I can tell that they give 100% in the games, and that's another thing that I like about people. And I can tell that this is a good team. I love the way that they play, and I love the way that the coaches manage the team. So Jones is a good option that I had before, and it's a good option now.
Yeah, well, congratulations on earning the JUCO Game Changer of the Month. Good luck this season with Jones. I know a lot of exciting things to come. And congratulations, first full English interview, and you knocked it out of the park.
Thank you.
Hillary, we so appreciate your time. And for your first full English interview, you did very well. Plus, we got to hear your incredible story because not too many of us will ever experience that. We have another break, and after that, rankings.
intensity fuels these champion student athletes to greatness. Zurich Insurance is proud to be the official provider of student athlete insurance for the National Junior College Athletic Association. Throughout the highs, we cheer along to their screams of victory. Throughout the lows, we support them through their tears of defeat. Zurich Insurance, helping student athletes play the sport they love.
Welcome back again to NJCAA All Access. We're going to get into the rankings now, and there have been some pretty big changes from last week. We kick off with the Division III football, a big jump for Rochester Community and Technical College. They move into the second spot from fourth last week. Minnesota State Community and Technical College moves from third to fifth this week. In D1 men's soccer, we have a new number 1 ranked team in Arizona Western, which means last week's number 1 team, Monroe, slides down to 4th. Cowley falls from 5th to 8th as well. In Division II men's soccer, some shuffling in the top 10. Phoenix moved from 2nd to 4th, which bumped Pima and Iowa Lakes up to 2nd and 3rd respectively. Jones, Schoolcraft, and CCBC Essex all swap rankings this week. In Division III men's soccer, Ocean County back on the board. They've previously been ranked 9th in week 3 but fell off. And Onondaga coming off 2 losses and a tie that leads them to not being ranked this week. Moving over to women's soccer in D1, Seminole State and Tyler swap places, now going 2nd and 3rd ranked. Eastern Florida State falls from 6th to 8th, and Monroe Community College moves up into the 6th ranking. D2 women's soccer, a new leader this week. Welcome to the top of the rankings, Northwest Mississippi. Former number 1 Holmes falls to 3rd. Division III women's soccer, a major fall for previously ranked number 5 Genesee. They're coming off 3 losses and a tie, which drops them to 9th on the board. Now looking at volleyball in Division I, Miami-Dade falls from 2nd to 4th, and a move upward for Northeastern Junior College, earning that 2nd ranked position. In Division II volleyball, another new name at the top of the rankings. Scottsdale moves into number 1, which means the former number 1, Johnson County, falls to 7th after racking up 2 losses. And we wrap up with Division III volleyball. Caldwell Community College falls from 5th all the way to 11th. DuPage goes from 7th to 12th, while Monroe College Bronx moves into 8th, Fulton Montgomery into 9th, and Finger Lakes in 10th. Like I said, a lot of change in the rankings this week, which at this point in the season means a lot more. Okay, it's time for Junior College Gems, and Zach has a very full segment this week.
It's time for Junior College Gems. We've had plenty of football top plays over the last couple of weeks, but plenty of non-football to showcase on this edition of Junior College Gems. Highlights from nearly every corner of the country, but we start in Yuma, Arizona, where Evelyn Trevino of the Lady Matadors gets up to block a shot, then adjusts mid-air to save it, allowing Arizona Western to rally and get the point. Arizona Western would sweep this match and is out to an 18-5 start this season. 2,300 miles away, goalkeeper Finley Newman is making diving saves for Jamestown CC after this free kick takes a right turn. Looks like a slider as it bends around the wall, but Newman was ready for the big save. Down south to Mississippi, it's Mason Short with 2 T's, saving the ball on the end line while sending a picture-perfect cross into the 18 to be headed home by Victor Mowerk for one of 8 goals in their win against Holmes. More Mississippi soccer as we head to Pearl River, and it's an Olympico for Marique Faber. Who needs a cross? She scores off the corner kick to add to the Wildcat lead. Impressive shot from the corner there. And staying in Poplarville, it's Cam Norwood for Wildcat football, who blocks this field goal and returns it 90 yards to the house against number 4 Mississippi Gulf Coast. Untouched as he does it all on this play. Perfect timing coming off the edge and perfect special teams execution for Norwood and for Pearl River. And lastly, number 1 Hutch has the audacity to try a 50-yard field goal, but the Aussie with one of the best names in junior college football, Nestis Berger, drills this one through the uprights. That one might have been good from 55 yards. Look out for him at the next level as Nestis Berger sets the school record for Hutch and ends our junior college gems.
Well, I can see you had a little fun with that name for a player who's from Down Under.
Nestis Berger, quite the name, quite the kick. Congrats to him setting the school record. Expect big things from him at the next level. And that's all we got for you on this week of NJCAA All Access. Reminder to keep sending in those JUCO gems. If you have stories, add us at the NJCAA Network on Twitter and on Facebook. So see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.